The principal didn't even look at me when she said it. "Mrs. Brooks, would you please wait outside for a few minutes?" I looked at my son. 11-year-old Noah had gone completely still. His backpack slipped from his shoulder and landed on the floor with a soft thud. "I thought this was a parent-teacher meeting," I said. "It is." "Then why am I leaving?" The principal hesitated. Before she could answer, the school counselor quietly closed her notebook. Not slammed, not rushed, just closed it. Like whatever had been written inside wasn't meant for me to hear. That scared me more than anything. My son's teacher wouldn't meet my eyes. The principal folded her hands. "It won't take long." I stood there, waiting for someone to explain. Instead, Noah suddenly whispered, "Mom." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry." "Sorry? For what?" I'd spent the entire drive worrying that he'd failed a math test or gotten into a fight. I never imagined the adults in that room were hiding something from me. 5 days later, a district investigator would ask a question that changed everything. "Who told the school you weren't allowed to make decisions for your own son?" Until that moment, I didn't even know someone had. My name is Claire Brooks. I'm 41 years old, and I live in Cedar Falls, Iowa. I've been a physical therapist for almost 17 years. It's a job I love because every day I get to help people believe they'll walk, lift, or move again when they're convinced they never will. I'm divorced. Not bitter. Just divorced. My ex-husband, Jason, and I ended our marriage 4 years ago after growing into two very different people. There wasn't a dramatic affair. There wasn't a courtroom battle. There was simply too much distance and too little honesty. The only thing we promised each other was that our son would never have to choose between us. For the most part, we kept that promise. Jason coached Noah's baseball team. I helped with homework. We alternated holidays. Attended every school concert together. People often told us we were unusually good at co-parenting. I believed that too. Until the Tuesday afternoon everything changed. The meeting had been scheduled because Noah's grades had dropped. His teacher, Ms. Ramirez, emailed both Jason and me saying she wanted to discuss a recent change in classroom behavior. Nothing about the email sounded urgent. I even stopped on the way to buy Noah his favorite chocolate chip cookies because I figured we'd go home, talk through whatever was bothering him, and move on. Jason texted me 30 minutes before the meeting. "Running late. Start without me. ****. That wasn't unusual. He traveled for work. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji and walked into the school. The receptionist smiled. "They're waiting in conference room 3. When I opened the door, 4 people were already inside. Ms. Ramirez, the school counselor Dana Ellis, Principal Helen Cooper, and Noah. The extra people surprised me. I'd expected a teacher. Maybe the counselor. Not the principal. Noah looked nervous. His hands were folded so tightly his knuckles had turned white. I sat beside him. "Hey, buddy." He gave me a tiny smile. "Hi, Mom." Before anyone else spoke, Principal Cooper said the words that still echo in my mind. "Mrs. Brooks, would you please wait outside for a few minutes?" I honestly thought I'd misheard her. "I'm sorry. We just need a brief conversation with Noah. I'm his mother." "Yes. Then why wouldn't I be part of it?" The counselor quietly closed her notebook. No one answered immediately. That silence felt wrong. Very wrong. Finally, Ms. Ramirez spoke. "We're following instructions we received." I frowned. Instructions from who? Another silence. Then the principal said something that made my stomach tighten. "Mr. Jason Brooks." I stared at her. "My ex-husband?" She nodded. "He informed us there are legal limitations regarding school discussions." "What legal limitations?" "He said you no longer had educational decision-making authority." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was impossible. "That's not true." The principal looked confused. "He provided documentation." "What documentation?" "I'm afraid I can't discuss it until we verify everything." I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and opened the copy of our divorce agreement I always kept saved. Shared legal custody. Shared educational decisions. Shared medical decisions. Nothing had changed. Nothing. I handed the phone to the principal. "Read paragraph 12. She did. Then she looked back at me. A tiny crease formed between her eyebrows. This doesn't match what we received. My heartbeat quickened. What exactly did Jason give you? Before she could answer, the office phone on the conference room table rang. She picked it up. Principal Cooper. She listened for a few seconds. Then her expression changed. She looked directly at me. Mrs. Brooks. Yes. Your ex-husband is here. She paused. And he's asking us not to let you see the paperwork. Every instinct I had as a mother told me not to leave that room. I looked at Noah. His eyes were fixed on the floor. He wasn't crying. He wasn't angry. He looked scared. That frightened me more than anything. I stood up. No. The principal blinked. I'm sorry. I'm not leaving until someone explains why my son's school believes I don't have the legal right to sit in a parent-teacher meeting. No one spoke. The counselor slowly reopened her notebook. For the first time since I walked in, she looked directly at me. I think we need to pause. The principal nodded. I agree. She picked up the phone again. Please ask Mr. Brooks to wait in my office. She hung up and turned back to me. Mrs. Brooks, may I see your driver's license? I handed it over without a word. She compared it to a photocopy lying inside the folder on the table. Then her expression changed. She looked at the counselor. Dana. I see it. What? I asked. The principal took a slow breath. The identification attached to the paperwork we received isn't yours. My stomach tightened. It isn't. No. She turned the photocopy toward me. It was a driver's license. The name was mine. The photo wasn't. I stared at it in disbelief. Who is that? We don't know. The address wasn't mine either. Neither was the signature. Yet someone had attached that fake identification to documents claiming I no longer had educational decision-making authority. Noah looked up for the first time. Mom! I'm right here. I told them it wasn't true. My heart broke. You did. He nodded. I told them you always came to my meetings. The counselor gave him a gentle smile. You did exactly the right thing. I reached over and squeezed Noah's hand. What else happened? He hesitated. Then he quietly said, Dad told me not to talk about it. The room became silent. A few minutes later there was another knock. Jason stepped into the conference room. He stopped the moment he saw me still sitting beside Noah. I thought she was supposed to be outside. The principal answered calmly. That won't be happening. Jason looked confused. I gave you the court documents. We're discussing those now. His confidence faded just a little. He looked at me. Claire, can we talk privately? No. This isn't the place. It became the place when my son's school was told I wasn't his legal parent. I never said you weren't his parent. You told them I couldn't make decisions. He rubbed the back of his neck. It's complicated. No. I held up my phone with our divorce agreement still open. It's actually very simple. You have joint legal custody. So explain the paperwork. Jason looked toward the principal. I'd rather not. The counselor spoke for the first time. I'm afraid you'll need to. Principal Cooper opened the folder. Mr. Brooks, these documents state that the court granted you sole educational authority 3 months ago. Jason nodded. That's correct. She placed my divorce decree beside it. Then why does this order reference a case number that doesn't exist in our county? Jason froze. No one moved. The principal continued. I called the clerk's office during the break. My heart skipped. You did? Yes. She looked directly at Jason. They have no record of this filing. Jason swallowed. There must be some mistake. There is. She gently tapped the paper. But I don't believe it belongs to the courthouse. The room became painfully quiet. Noah looked from me to his father. Dad. Jason couldn't meet his eyes. The counselor quietly slid another sheet onto the table. When these documents arrived, she looked at me apologetically. Something felt unusual. What do you mean? The court seal looked slightly different. So why accept them? Because we also received an email. From who? The address appeared to belong to your attorney. I frowned. I haven't had an attorney since my divorce. That's what concerns us. She turned the page toward me. The email address looked almost legitimate. Almost. One letter in the law firm's domain name had been changed. Just enough that most people would never notice. Someone had impersonated a law office. I felt sick. This was planned. The principal nodded. It appears so. Jason finally spoke. I didn't create that email. Everyone turned toward him. You didn't? I asked. No. Then who did? He closed his eyes. I hired someone. My heart dropped. You what? I thought they were a legal document service. The principal's expression hardened. What service? Jason pulled out his phone. I found them online. He searched for a few seconds. Then his face turned pale. The website. What about it? It's gone. The room fell silent again. Finally, Noah whispered something none of us expected. I know why Dad did it. Jason's head snapped toward him. Noah. It's okay. My son looked at both of us. I heard you talking on the phone. Jason's shoulders slumped. You weren't supposed to. You said. Noah's voice shook. That if Mom came to school, she'd find out. I looked at Jason. Find out what? He didn't answer. Instead, he covered his face with both hands. The counselor quietly closed her notebook again. Not because the meeting was over. Because she realized this had become something much bigger than a school misunderstanding. Then the principal's secretary knocked on the door. Mrs. Cooper. Yes. There's a woman from the district office here. The principal frowned. Already. She says she's an investigator. The secretary hesitated. And she asked one very specific question. What question? She looked directly at me. She wants to know whether anyone has shown Mrs. Brooks the original documents. Because she believes the copies may not be the only forged records involved. The room went completely silent. Even Jason looked confused. The only forged records, he repeated. The principal stood and opened the conference room door. A woman in a navy blazer stepped inside carrying a slim briefcase. She looked to be in her early 50s. Professional. Calm. The kind of person who didn't waste words. She held out her identification. My name is Angela Whitmore. I'm with the district's Office of Student Compliance. She smiled politely at me. Mrs. Brooks. Yes. I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. She set her briefcase on the table and looked around the room. I'd like everyone to stay if possible. Jason shifted uneasily. Am I required to? No. She met his eyes. But I think leaving now would be a mistake. He slowly sat back down. Angela opened her briefcase and removed 2 folders. The principal contacted our office about 30 minutes ago, after noticing irregularities in the court order. She placed one folder in front of Principal Cooper. The first issue was the court seal. Then she placed the second folder in front of me. The second issue was much more concerning. I opened it. Inside was a copy of Noah's emergency contact form. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then Angela pointed to the bottom. Do you recognize that signature? I looked closely. No. It isn't yours. No. She nodded. We've confirmed that. I frowned. When was this submitted? Angela checked her notes. 5 weeks ago. I looked at Jason. I never signed this. He stared at the page. Neither had he. I've never seen it. Angela continued. Someone changed your emergency contact information. My heart skipped. Changed it how? She turned another page. The previous form listed both parents as primary emergency contacts. And now, it lists only Mr. Brooks. I felt sick. What? The secondary contact was also changed. To who? She looked directly at Jason. A woman named Melissa Grant. Jason's face drained of color. No. You know her. He nodded slowly. She works in my office. The room fell quiet. I looked at him. Your coworker? Yes. Why would she be Noah's emergency contact? I never asked for that. Angela calmly replied. Our records show the request was submitted electronically from your parent portal. Jason immediately shook his head. I didn't submit it. That's possible. She didn't sound accusing. It could also mean someone had access to your account. That thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Someone wasn't just forging paperwork. They might have been inside the school's online system. Angela opened another document. We reviewed every change made to Noah's school records over the last 6 months. She slid the timeline across the table. Most entries were routine. Attendance, report cards, teacher comments. Then 3 updates were highlighted in yellow. Emergency contacts changed. Educational authority updated. Parent communication preferences modified. I looked closer. What does this one mean? Angela pointed to the last line. It instructed the school to send meeting notices only to one parent. I felt my stomach twist. Jason. He looked horrified. I never requested that. The principal looked genuinely upset. Mrs. Brooks. I am so sorry. I took a deep breath. I know. She shook her head. No. We should have verified the requests before changing your records. Angela gently interrupted. The district is reviewing that process now. Then she turned to Jason. I need to ask you something. Okay. Has anyone besides you ever had access to your parent portal password? He thought for a long moment. My laptop stays in my office. And my assistant sometimes schedules appointments on it. What about Melissa Grant? Jason froze. Angela noticed. You hesitated. He rubbed his forehead. Melissa covered for my assistant while she was on maternity leave. So she had access? Sometimes. He looked down. I never imagined. His voice faded. Angela made another note. I'd like her full contact information. Noah had been quietly listening to every word. Finally, he looked at his father. Dad. Jason immediately turned toward him. Yeah, buddy. You said this was because the school kept making mistakes. Jason's eyes filled with tears. I know. Was that true? He couldn't answer right away. Finally he whispered. I believed it was. Noah nodded sadly. I wanted to believe you. That single sentence seemed to break something inside Jason. He covered his face. I'm so sorry. For the first time since the meeting began, I believed he wasn't hiding behind excuses anymore. He genuinely looked devastated. Angela closed one folder. I don't believe Mr. Brooks intended for this to happen. I looked at her. You don't? No. She tapped the timeline. I think someone exploited his trust. The room became quiet again. Then Principal Cooper spoke. Mrs. Whitmore. Yes. There's one thing that still doesn't make sense. What is it? Why Noah? Angela answered almost immediately. I don't think Noah was the target. Everyone looked at her. I think access to his school records was simply the easiest way to support forged custody documents. I frowned. For what purpose? Angela slowly turned toward Jason. I believe that's connected to your employment. Jason blinked. My job. She nodded. We contacted your company this morning. You did? Yes. Why? Because Melissa Grant no longer works there. My heart skipped. When did she leave? Angela looked at her notes. Last Friday. Jason frowned. She told everyone she accepted another position. Angela nodded. She did. But according to Human Resources. She paused. She resigned the same day your identity theft report was filed with your bank. Jason looked stunned. My bank. He grabbed his phone and started scrolling. Then his face went completely pale. Oh my God. What? He looked at me. I thought it was just a fraudulent credit card. Angela quietly asked. Mr. Brooks, did the bank mention attempts to change your mailing address? His mouth slowly opened. Yes. She nodded. I think whoever altered Noah's school records may also have been using your personal information somewhere else. The conference room fell silent. This wasn't just about a parent-teacher meeting anymore. It wasn't even just about our family. Someone had been building a false paper trail using Jason's identity, and if Angela was right, the forged custody documents were only one piece of something much larger. Just then Angela's phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen. Then she looked up at both of us. The detective assigned to the identity theft case just called. She took a slow breath. They've recovered a laptop. I frowned. Whose laptop? Angela answered quietly. It belonged to Melissa Grant. She paused. And according to the search warrant inventory, it contains digital copies of Noah's school records. No one spoke for several seconds. The only sound in the conference room was the air conditioner humming above us. Jason looked like he might be sick. My son's records. Angela nodded. The detective asked me not to speculate, but they confirmed the laptop contained school-related documents. Why would she have those? I asked. We don't know yet. She closed her folder. But we do know one thing. What? This is no longer a school matter. 3 days later, Jason and I sat together in a detective's office. Felt strange. 4 years after our divorce, we were sitting side by side again. Not as husband and wife. Not even as friends. Just as two parents trying to understand how someone had pulled our family into something neither of us saw coming. Detective Laura Kim spread several documents across the table. We've been investigating Melissa Grant for identity theft involving multiple victims. Jason stared at her. Multiple? Yes. I thought it was just my bank account. It started there. She slid another report toward him. Then someone attempted to open a home equity line of credit, using your information. Jason shook his head. I don't even have a home. Exactly. She looked at me. We believe whoever was using Mr. Brooks' identity needed supporting documents that made the information appear legitimate. I frowned. So they used Noah's school records? Detective Kim nodded. School records are commonly accepted as proof of family relationships and residential information. A chill ran through me. Someone hadn't targeted our son because of who he was. He'd been used because his records connected both of us. The detective opened another folder. We recovered hundreds of digital files. What kind of files? I asked. Driver's licenses. Birth certificates. Insurance forms. Employment records. Then she paused. And family court documents. Jason looked down. The custody papers. We found templates. My stomach tightened. Templates. Whoever created the false court order didn't forge it from scratch. She pointed to the screen. They downloaded authentic court forms and altered the contents. I thought back to the fake seal, the fake email, the changed parent portal. Every step had been carefully planned. What about Noah? I asked. Was any of his information shared? Detective Kim smiled reassuringly. We've found no evidence that his social security number or medical information was misused. I finally let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. So why change the school records? To make the forged custody paperwork appear believable. She looked toward Jason. When someone later reviewed the documents, the school records supported the false claims. Jason quietly whispered, I never imagined trusting the wrong person could hurt my own son. Neither had I. A week later, the school district invited both of us back. This time the atmosphere couldn't have been more different. Principal Cooper stood as soon as we entered. I owe both of you an apology. She looked at me first. Mrs. Brooks. I'm deeply sorry we asked you to leave your son's meeting. Then she looked at Jason. And I'm sorry we accepted documents without verifying them. The district superintendent was also there. He explained that new procedures had already been approved. No custody change would ever be accepted without direct confirmation from both parents, unless accompanied by certified court verification. Parent portal changes involving legal authority would trigger automatic review. Emergency contact updates would require additional identity verification. We learned from what happened, he said quietly. I wish we hadn't needed to. Noah's teacher, Ms. Ramirez, asked if she could speak with us privately afterward. When everyone else left, she sat beside Noah. I need to tell you something. He looked nervous. Am I in trouble? She smiled. No. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a stack of papers. They're your writing assignments. Noah looked confused. I know. I've been reading them again. She handed one to me. The title read, My Safe Place. I began reading. My safe place isn't a house. It's when my mom and dad are both sitting in the same room. Asterisk, even if they're not married anymore. I know everything will be okay because they're both listening. Asterisk. I couldn't finish. Tears blurred the page. Jason quietly looked away. Noah shrugged. I didn't think anyone would actually read it. I did, Ms. Ramirez said softly. And I think your parents needed to read it too. Over the next several months, our lives slowly settled down. The criminal investigation continued. Eventually, Melissa Grant pleaded guilty to multiple identity-related offenses involving several victims. The case wasn't just about our family. There were other forged documents, other altered records, other people whose trust had been exploited. Knowing that didn't erase what happened, but it helped me understand we hadn't been singled out. We'd simply crossed paths with someone willing to manipulate anyone who could help hide a larger fraud. Jason and I also had difficult conversations we'd avoided for years. One evening, after dropping Noah off at baseball practice, he looked at me and said, "I keep thinking about that meeting." "So do I. I should have called you the moment the bank warned me someone had accessed my information. You didn't know it involved Noah." "I know." He looked out the windshield. "But I stopped asking questions because I was embarrassed." I nodded. "And I assumed the worst instead of asking you what was going on." We sat quietly for a moment. Then he smiled sadly. "I guess we finally found something we still have in common." "What's that?" "We're both stubborn." I laughed for the first time in weeks. "So that's never changing?" "Probably not." The biggest change happened at Noah's next parent-teacher conference. When we arrived, Principal Cooper met us at the door herself. She smiled warmly. "I'm glad you're both here." This time there were no closed notebooks, no secret folders, no requests for anyone to wait outside. Just 3 chairs placed side by side. One for Noah, one for Jason, one for me. Halfway through the meeting, Noah looked around the room and grinned. "This is better." "It is," I said. Jason nodded. "It really is." People sometimes ask what I remember most about everything that happened. They expect me to talk about the forged paperwork, or the investigation, or the criminal case. But that's not what stayed with me. What I remember most is the moment the school counselor quietly closed her notebook. At the time I thought she was shutting me out. Later I realized she had stopped the meeting because something didn't feel right. She trusted her instincts instead of rushing forward. That decision protected my son, protected me, and it gave the truth enough time to catch up. Families don't become stronger because nothing ever goes wrong. They become stronger because when something does go wrong, they're willing to face it together. That afternoon started with someone asking me to leave the room. It ended with our family learning that the most important conversations are the ones where no one gets left outside the door.